A Generation of Hate by Dyson Hinberg. Picture this. You were a young kid walking through the streets of LA, and you picked out your favorite shirt, which happens to be a blue t-shirt, and you have this car drive by and they come to a sudden stop. This is your time that you need to process you were in the wrong spot at the very wrong time. You hear the gunshots from the car as they're being fired at you, because in this car is a bunch of guys from the gang, the Bloods. And right now, since you're wearing a blue shirt, they think you're in a rival gang, the Crips. This was their main rival in the gang wars. This was one of the biggest rivalries in the country at this time period, in the later 80s and 90s era. Forget about sports. Even though this man was at the wrong place at the wrong time, people noticed that things needed to be changed, and this man stepped up. Tupac Shakur was an artist that made hip-hop/rap music and was a member of the Blood Gang, yet at some point, even gang members were fed up with this life and wanted to fix it and how the world was. Tupac made the song Changes and was written in a hip-hop tune, and that's what everyone would be listening to growing up around the country. Most of these rappers in this era were also a part of some sort of gang and spread it through their music. Some notable rappers are Lil Wayne, who were part of the Blood Gang, and also 50 Cent, who was also a part of a Blood Gang. This type of music normally would have a beat of a drum and some piano at points, but what made this music stand out was the flow and words like a Robert Frost poem. These types of songs are meant to try and show people what is really there and what is happening out in the world. And this song means that not all people want the life they're given and want changes in the world. Body paragraph 1. The youth of the 90s was inspired in this type of music because it showed how hurtful it can be to have a member lost in society, family, or brotherhood. As I was saying, this generation of music affected the people by how it could relate to families because of how a gang is basically a family to them in their own way. These gangs would shoot at each other's families, air quotes, by just the color of shirts or bandanas they wore. If you wore blue, you were an enemy to the Bloods. And if you wore red, you were an enemy to the Crips. They look at each other as if they're bad guys in a world based on the color they represent, and not all people could understand that feeling. If you lose a family member, how does that make you feel? Would you want to kill the other person who killed your loved one? Well, in that case, then you should be, if you said yes to that last question, why aren't you able to control that feeling you'd have with those people? That is basically what happens in these gangs, is that you have a family member killed by them, and then you kill the person who killed them, and then it just turns into a long chain of revenge. This generation hasn't had the type of feelings because they listen to the people who have had it happen to them, like Biggie, Tupac, and Eazy-E. They have this all mapped out into words for us to understand what it's really like to lose people we love the most. This type of world, it was in your main areas of the USA. All the gangs mostly were in New York and LA, your main two hubs of where all those people were, as well as the most violent places to be at the time due to all the gang activity. It marked the 5th consecutive year of killing in the country, which had seen the annual gang-related death toll rise from 452 to 559 to 690 to 771. If I were you, I would listen to the stories on how these people want to avoid being known as just another killed to gang violence, which happen more often than you think. These people want you to put an end to violence and bring peace to the world and not have as much sadness. Body paragraph 2. When you think of the world, what do you think is the most important thing we need to do together? We need to bring on change to make this world a better and safer place to live and all for us. Picture this. If you had a kid in the 90s, would you feel comfortable with them walking down the street alone? I sure wouldn't. This would make me scared to death that he might not come come home that night just getting caught in the crossfire of gangs. Tupac says that this world is not safe because of gang violence, and is also not safe just being an African American walking down the street, that we are all God's creation and should be loved no matter what race or creed. What would we do if we had the choice to all stand together side by side and hold hands no matter what? That's the type of world I would like to live in, and I know Tupac also wants that as well. Just because he was in a gang doesn't always mean that it was his choice. Not all gang members were supposed to be in the gang. They were forced in by siblings or the family that they had left. Some of the ways you can prevent yourself into being in a gang is positive family and school environments appeared to operate through other domains, mainly peers and neighborhoods. If this was the world God wanted, then he would have created more greater beings in this world and not make us all equal like how we were born to be. Sure, you can do more good, but not bad. Try and give people compliments that you don't know. Spread the love, and not violence. Body paragraph 3. This made an impact on more people after the passing of Tupac when he died in a gang incident in New York. That was when the people realized that this world is not safe for the people we look up to. Biggie also died of a gang incident, and Eazy-E got out of multiple life-threatening gang situations. If this world would have listened earlier on in the life of Tupac, then maybe we could have saved his life or anyone else threatened by those gang influencers. People in this generation soon found out the hard way that you will lose the people you love if you don't try and make change and show people to love, not hate. This world is meant for love because that's what is written in the Bible, and some lives may have been saved if no one hated everyone and gangs never became a thing in this country. While you were walking the streets, you should have been able to wave your hand and not point guns in the 1990s. But, well, we all know how that turned out for some people. You weren't able to walk along the streets. Those have been used in drive-by shooting, which have become a trademark of gang violence. If shooting someone is the way you want to go about life and makes you happy, you aren't the solution to this massive problem we've had in the 90s and still do to this day, nearly 30 years later. Gangs are still relevant today. They may be smaller and not as big of a problem, but they still can have effect on many of people's lives. Why can't we have changes and be appreciated for who we are and not who we can pretend to be? These rappers have put us in their shoes in this music, and it's terrifying thinking about what my life, your life, any of our lives could have been. Conclusion. I don't think that people don't want to live in this life that they're given just because it isn't who they were meant to be. This generation was shown to have massive gang-related deaths because of lack of involvement, but this all changed as we went more into the early 2000s, and that is what they need to see in this world. People stopped looking into gangs, or they just shot themselves all to death, which causes less deaths in gang violence because there's really no one left to kill. All the gangs would be able to just kill each other off and not have anyone to be able to recruit them. Or the generation we have now would not be excited to join the gang, so to speak. They have all made a difference in this world, but because now you don't always hear about gang violence like that, because that stuff isn't cool to us anymore. We're all trying to share the love, and we can be proud of who we are based on what we stand for, not who we represent. In today's day and age, we probably would have done absolutely nothing at all just because there's no way any of us would have had the guts to address anyone in person. We all just sit and hide behind the screen. We just don't want to put the effort to join a gang and go through that process of being a gang member. Plus, we all have amazing families who are part of this 90s era and would do anything in their power to keep us safe because of the love that they give us and they don't want us to go through the same thing that they did.